The story of Egypt is not only carved in stone and written on papyrus, it is sung in the voices of gods and remembered in the trembling of the desert winds. The Egyptians believed their land was not merely ruled by men but by powers far greater, divine beings whose rivalries, alliances, and wars shaped the destiny of heaven and earth. This was the Egyptian god war, an eternal clash between order and chaos, brother and brother, life and death. Before time had a name, before the first stone rose from the desert floor, there was only none, the endless, black and silent waters. None was not a sea as men know it, but a boundless void, a womb of formlessness where neither sky nor earth, neither death nor life, could be found. It was eternity without direction, vast and suffocating, waiting for the first spark to break its stillness. From this abyss, a blazing power emerged, Ra, the radiant sun god. He was not born of parents, nor shaped by hands. He rose of his own will, a living flame of consciousness, the first to speak in the silence. His light broke the infinite waters, and for the first time, darkness recoiled. Ra's eyes became the sun and moon, his breath, the winds, his tears, the seeds of humanity to come. With word and will, Ra shaped order out of nothing. He lifted the sky goddess Nut, arched like a dome of stars, high above the earth god Geb, who stretched below as fertile ground. Between them, Ra placed Shu, the god of air, to hold them apart, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, to carry life into the world. Together, these firstborn became the pillars of existence: air, water, earth, and sky. But creation is never without consequence. To carve order out of chaos is to provoke resistance, for no light exists without shadow. As Ra spread his brilliance across the waters, the abyss stirred with wrath. From the same depths of none where Ra had risen, another being coiled into existence, Apophis, the colossal serpent of annihilation. Unlike Ra, Apophis was not a builder. He was a devourer. He had no throne, no laws, no songs. His very breath was poison, his coils the crushing weight of oblivion. He was the embodiment of Isfit, chaos, disorder, unmaking. Where Ra sought to bring life, Apophis sought only to consume. Thus began the first war of the gods, a war not fought with swords, but with the very fabric of reality itself. Each day, Ra sailed across the sky in his solar bark, blessing the world with light and life. But when the sun set, his journey was not rest but peril. As he descended into the underworld, Ra entered Apophis's domain, the abyssal waters of chaos. There, the serpent struck. The battles were cataclysmic. Apophis rose like a mountain of darkness, his scales blotting out the stars, his roar shaking the heavens. He sought to swallow the sun whole, to drag all creation back into the silence of none. The guardians of Ra, gods, spirits, and divine defenders, rose to meet him. Set, the storm god, stood at the prow of Ra's bark with a spear of fire, fending off the serpent's fangs. Ma'at herself, the goddess of truth, stood beside Ra, her feather of balance keeping chaos from tipping the world into destruction. When Apophis struck, thunder cracked across the firmament. Lightning licked the sky, stars shuddered in their places, and the earth trembled beneath the weight of their clash. Yet Ra endured. With every dawn, his light broke free of the serpent's jaws, piercing the horizon. Each sunrise was a divine victory, proof that order still held back the abyss. But Apophis was not slain. He could not be slain, for he was as eternal as the waters themselves. With every sunset he returned, coiled in the shadows, whispering his promise, "I will rise again. I will devour the light." And so the cycle began, the eternal rhythm of Egyptian belief, day and night, life and death, order and chaos. This nightly battle was not only a myth but a cosmic truth. To the Egyptians, each dawn was a celebration of triumph, and each twilight a warning that the war was not over. The war between Ra and Apophis was the foundation of existence itself. Without it, the Nile would not flow, the stars would not shine, and men would not rise to greet the morning. For Egypt, the god war began here, in the first clash of light and darkness, and it would echo forever in every story, every temple, and every heart that dared to believe in the fragile triumph of order over chaos. When the fiery days of Ra's earthly reign drew to a close, the throne of the gods did not vanish but passed into new hands. It descended to Osiris, son of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, a god of life, fertility, and renewal. Where Ra was the blazing light of creation, Osiris became the gentle green of the Nile valley, the quiet strength of the fields, and the rhythm of the harvest. Osiris was not a distant sovereign. He walked among mortals, teaching them to till the soil, to reap the grain, to fashion laws, and to honor the divine order of Ma'at. Under his rule, Egypt prospered. The Nile flooded with abundance, the fields flourished, and men found peace in the cycles of sowing and reaping. He was more than king. He was the embodiment of life itself, the proof that harmony between gods and men could be achieved. But in the shadow of this flourishing age, envy burned like a desert wind. Set, Osiris's brother, watched with growing hatred. Set was god of storms, deserts, and violence, the barren red lands beyond the fertile valley. Where Osiris represented abundance, Set embodied famine. Where Osiris brought harmony, Set brought disruption. He was the wild storm that shattered crops, the sandstorm that swallowed villages, the rage that lurked in the heart of man. And though he was a god, he could not abide standing beneath his brother's rule. Set's resentment festered until it became a hunger for the throne itself. The law of Ma'at, the balance of justice and truth, was nothing to him. He desired dominion, not harmony. And so he conspired. One fateful night, Set prepared a magnificent coffin, wrought with gold and jewels, crafted to fit only one form, Osiris's. At a feast, Set brought forth the shining chest and declared, "Whoever lies within this coffin, to whom it fits perfectly, shall have it as a gift." One by one, the gods and mortals tried, but none matched its measure. At last, Osiris stepped forward, unassuming, and lay within. The moment he did, Set and his conspirators slammed the lid shut. They poured molten lead upon it, sealing it tight, and hurled it into the Nile. The river carried it away, swallowing Egypt's king. Darkness fell upon the land, and Egypt mourned. Its golden age of harmony was ended in one breath of treachery. But the story did not end there. For Isis, Osiris's faithful wife and goddess of magic, could not accept defeat. She wandered across the land and the waters, weeping and searching for the body of her husband. Her devotion was unshakable, her love stronger than death. At last, she found the coffin, but Set's wrath was not yet spent. Fearing Osiris might rise again, Set seized the body and hacked it into 14 pieces. Scattering them across the length and breadth of Egypt, he sought to erase Osiris from the world, to break him beyond repair, to silence forever the god of life. Yet Isis's love defied chaos. With the aid of her sister Nephthys, she scoured the deserts and valleys, the marshes and tombs, gathering the fragments of her husband. Piece by piece, she reassembled him, wrapping him in bandages, restoring his form with magic and mourning. Though incomplete, Osiris rose again, not as king of the living, but as lord of the underworld, sovereign of the dead, and judge of every soul. In this fleeting reunion, Isis conceived a son, Horus, the falcon child. Hidden among the reeds of the Nile, Horus would grow to avenge his father, to challenge Set, and to claim the throne of Egypt. Thus the golden throne of Osiris was not lost but transformed. Life gave way to death, harmony to vengeance, and the stage was set for the greatest war of the gods, the battle between Horus and Set, a struggle that would shape the destiny of Egypt itself. The murder of Osiris was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a greater one. From the devotion of Isis and the fleeting return of her husband, a son was born, Horus, the falcon-headed god. His birth was no ordinary event, but a living prophecy. Horus was the embodiment of vengeance and justice, the child destined to restore balance and reclaim his father's stolen throne. But destiny requires patience. Isis, knowing the danger that lurked, hid her infant son in the marshes of the Nile Delta. There, concealed among papyrus reeds, she raised him in secrecy, away from Set's hunting gaze. The boy was nurtured not only by his mother's love but by the magic of the gods. He learned the ways of battle, the wisdom of the divine, and the unyielding law of Ma'at. In his veins flowed the inheritance of kingship, in his heart, the fire of revenge. When Horus came of age, he rose from the shadows like a falcon taking flight. His cry pierced the heavens, and his challenge to Set shook both gods and men. Thus began the greatest divine war in Egyptian memory, a conflict that lasted 80 years, a struggle so vast it echoed through the skies, the earth, and the underworld alike. This was not a quiet war. It was a storm of fury and transformation. Horus and Set clashed again and again, taking on forms both natural and cosmic. In the skies, Horus became a falcon with wings that darkened the sun, while Set raged as a storm, hurling lightning and sand across the firmament. Their cries were thunder, their blows shook the heavens. Upon the Nile, they met in combat, and its waters turned crimson with the force of their battle, the river itself writhing under their fury. One of the most brutal encounters came when Set struck Horus with merciless rage, gouging out his eye. The falcon god stumbled, blinded, his power seemingly broken. But even in this loss, destiny stirred. Thoth, god of wisdom and magic, descended with his healing arts. He restored the eye of Horus, making it whole again, and from this act was born the Eye of Horus, a divine symbol of healing, sacrifice, and eternal protection. From loss came strength, and from suffering, justice. Their war was not only physical but legal, for the throne of Egypt was not merely seized, it had to be judged. The gods convened a council to decide the rightful heir. The debate stretched on, mirroring the battles of the field. Even Ra, the great sun god, hesitated. For though Horus was the rightful son, Set was powerful, dangerous, and essential in the fight against chaos. Justice demanded recognition of Osiris's heir, but balance demanded caution. At last, the judgment was declared. Osiris would reign as king of the underworld, sovereign of the dead, ensuring that death was bound to justice and order. Horus, the falcon child, was crowned king of the living, rightful ruler of Egypt, his throne secured by both blood and law. And Set, though defeated, was not destroyed. His fury was not extinguished, but redirected. He was bound to stand at the prow of Ra's solar bark, wielding his strength not against the living but against Apophis, the eternal serpent of chaos. Thus, the storm god became a guardian, and destruction itself was harnessed into the service of order. The war of Horus and Set was more than myth, it was the drama of Egypt's soul. It was the story of vengeance and justice, of suffering and healing, of death yielding to resurrection. It was a war that redefined the cosmos. Osiris ruling the dead, Horus ruling the living, and Set turned into the reluctant defender of creation. This was the god war's turning point, where chaos was not annihilated but chained, where life and death were forever bound together, and where the throne of Egypt was established as a symbol of divine order. The Egyptian god war was never a single moment, never a single clash that ended in final triumph. It was a cycle, a living rhythm that echoed through every dawn, every flood, every burial, and every crown placed upon a pharaoh's head. To the Egyptians, the war of the gods was not a tale to be remembered, it was a reality to be lived. Each night, as the sun descended into the underworld, Ra's solar bark once again entered the waters of chaos, and Apophis, the great serpent, rose to strike. The gods who had once fought on earth now stood eternal guard, Set at the prow, Thoth with his wisdom, Ma'at with her feather of balance. Thunder shook the heavens as Ra's light was swallowed in shadow, until the dawn split the horizon and the sun rose again, proof that order had survived one more night. Every sunrise was not just the beginning of a new day but a victory of the cosmos itself. Each year, when the Nile swelled and flooded, the people saw in its waters the body of Osiris, resurrected in green abundance. The grain that rose from the soil was his flesh renewed, and the harvest was proof that life triumphed over death. Farmers bowed in reverence as they cut the wheat, knowing they held in their hands the very symbol of resurrection. In the tombs of their dead, mourners placed offerings and prayers, certain that Osiris awaited them as the eternal king of the underworld, judging every soul by the measure of truth. Every pharaoh who ascended to the throne was declared the living Horus, heir of the divine war. His coronation was not merely a political act but a cosmic continuation. He was the falcon who had avenged his father, the protector of Ma'at, the eternal opponent of Isfet. To disobey him was to side with chaos. To follow him was to take part in the victory of the gods. Pharaohs bore crowns not of gold alone but of sacred duty, the unending burden of holding the world together. Temples rose as fortresses in this eternal struggle. Their walls were inscribed with hymns, their chambers filled with offerings, their sanctuaries alive with the voices of priests who chanted through the night. These were not rituals of empty piety, but weapons of war. Every prayer was a spear against Apophis, every hymn a shield for Razbark, every sacrifice a reaffirmation of Ma'at against the encroaching tide of chaos. For the Egyptian people, the god war was not distant mythology, it was woven into every breath of existence. To plant was to invoke Osiris. To pray was to join Ra's guardians. To honor truth was to walk in the way of Horus. Even death itself was but a passage into the kingdom of Osiris, where judgment would decide whether one upheld Ma'at or fell into the jaws of chaos. Yet the Egyptians knew a truth deeper still: the war was never truly won. It was eternal, carved into the rhythm of the universe itself. Light against shadow, life against death, order against chaos. The serpent Apophis could never be slain, only resisted. Set could never be erased, only bound. The dead could never cease, only judged. Creation itself was fragile, always one step away from collapse, and only the vigilance of gods and men together could preserve it. Thus, the Egyptian god war was more than myth. It was the story of existence itself. It was a reminder that the world endures not because chaos is destroyed, but because order never stops resisting. The temples, the hymns, the Nile, the sunrise, all were living symbols that the war continued and that every man and woman of Egypt had a part to play. And so, across millennia, the sands remembered. Beneath the pyramids, behind the hieroglyphs, in the silent gaze of the Sphinx, the echoes of the god war remained. A story eternal, a battle unending, a truth carved into time. Even now, as the pyramid stands silent under the desert sun, the memory of this war endures. Every hieroglyph whispers of divine conflict. Every temple carries the echo of the gods' battles. The people of Egypt believed that the universe itself was fragile, always one step away from collapse, and only the vigilance of gods and men together kept chaos at bay. The god war of Egypt was not a relic of myth but a mirror of life, the eternal struggle within every soul, every kingdom, every age. The sands remember, the Nile remembers, and as long as the sun rises, the war goes on. The Egyptian god war was never just about Ra, Osiris, Horus, or Set, it was about all of us. It is the reminder that every sunrise, every victory of truth over lies, every act of justice in the face of chaos is a continuation of that same eternal struggle. And now, this story lives on through you. When you subscribe, you join the journey deeper into the hidden histories and mysteries of the ancient world, standing with those who refuse to let these stories be forgotten. When you share, you carry the flame, passing the wisdom and power of these tales beyond borders, just as the Nile carried life through the desert. And when you comment, you do more than speak. You take your place in the council of voices, adding your perspective to a living legacy that is still unfolding. The gods may have waged their war in eternity, but the echo is here, in us. The sands still remember. The pyramids still stand. And together, we keep the story alive.